What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about what seems to be this massive PlayStation showcase that is upcoming, right? So we've heard a little bit about this before. Actually, I think a lot of this has all come from Jeff Grubb, and what we had kind of known was there was going to be a state of play in late February, early March. It was going to be pretty low-key. It was going to be smaller announcements, right? And that all came from him, and he was definitely right on the money, right? So you got one February 23rd, and it definitely was low-key, even Suicide Squad, right? Being big, in terms of seeing so much of it, and definitely a big game, but obviously not being for everybody, and you can definitely judge the quality, even of what we saw. So now people say, okay, well, what about this PlayStation showcase? Well, the newest news, and I'm just going to read his quote, the full quote from him, and this comes from Reddit, but this was from his show. So as we are getting into this episode, I said the state of play wasn't that bad, but that's because my expectations were rock bottom. I thought that Capcom did have a good showing, and I thought that Humanity was cool. It was cool to get an update on an enhanced game, and also I understand what these state of plays are. They're an obligation. They are Sony meeting the obligations to their co-marketing partners. I'm going to make a video about this week, I think, where I just say, what are these state of plays really? Why do these keep happening? And the answer is simple. They tell developers and publishers they want to make a co-marketing deal with. We will put out a state of play, and that's going to count as so much money toward what we consider a co-marketing deal. So they have to do them, even if Sony itself is saving its actual good stuff for something else, which is what's happening here. They're saving the good stuff for the PlayStation showcase that's going to happen before E3. It was supposed to happen last fall, but they kept pushing it back because the developers weren't ready. But now that those developers are ready, they should have a massive show that really sets up the second phase of the PS5, so there's a lot to be excited about. It's just that this state of play was never going to be that. So pretty interesting insight, honestly. I think we had kind of sensed it, these state of plays. You could probably tell that even with like Hogwarts Legacy, right? Or when they do these state of plays for specific games, they're marketing, right? This is a big way, and probably the new aged way to market your game. So when Sony makes a marketing deal for them, that may include, a state of play. That may be most of their marketing agreement for some of these games. So I do understand it, right? If you have an obligation to market these games, you got to put them somewhere, right? And if the state of play is that place. Now, that's not exactly fair to the consumers, to us, right? Now, some of the state of play yesterday was actually pretty good. I'm not going to say the whole thing was garbage. I've always propped up a game like Chia. I cannot wait for that game. That's my kind of new indie game that I'm like super, kind of focusing on. There was some pretty cool stuff. So I'm not saying never, market these things, but when you kind of like throw them all together, and if that's behind the scenes your reasoning, right? Well, we'll just literally put them all together. People may not care, but we're just going to have a state of play. That's not really fair to us, right? But, it is what it is. And then the PlayStation showcase. So that all does make sense to me. The idea that it was supposed to be last fall, they delayed it or they pushed it. Look, there was always the back and forth of like, could the Activision Blizzard thing be in the way? And so honestly, this rumor, only if you believe Jeff Grubb, right? If you don't, then none of this really matters. But if you believe him, then yeah, the Activision Blizzard stuff actually doesn't matter, at all. They simply delayed it because they weren't ready, right? And that brings me to wondering, I guess, what is gonna be shown, because you can think of things like Spider-Man, right? And you can imagine, well, they literally weren't ready to show a trailer or anything back then. Well, what about now? Now they are. But what else you got? What brand new things are you going to show that come out, say, 2024 and onward? And you imagine probably a good amount of that stuff would be shown at this PlayStation showcase. Now, one final thing, I did see several people say, well, what does it mean to say, because he says before E3. Now, I believe the initial rumor when he talked about the state of play, right? So he said state of play, late February, early March. I do think he said June for the PlayStation showcase. This time, he just said before E3, which really would be like the first week of June, if you're thinking June, right? So if you're limiting this showcase to only June 2023, then it would have to be within the first week. If you're not talking about June, right, and it's just simply before E3 period, then you're looking at maybe May or even April. I think it'll be later, right? Because you just have this. So I feel like you want to give it a little time, even though they're going to be very different kind of, shows. I still think you probably give it some time to breathe. So you have this now, and then you probably have nothing in March, right? And then maybe April. Now, April is the Horizon DLC, right? So maybe right after that, so like end of April, and then you're all into May. But again, that's only going off of the idea that it doesn't have to be in June, right? But if you believe the first rumor, and I do think he said June in the first rumor, maybe that first week of June. So that's going to kind of be what I'm expecting, right? I won't expect it anytime earlier. If it's the first week of June, that's fine by me. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.